Valyrian steel. A history of the known blades. From A Song of Ice and Fire. Introduction. Valyrian steel is among the rarest and most prized materials in the known world. Forged in the days of old Valyria using a now-lost combination of sorcery and master smithcraft, the blades are renowned for their strength, their lightness, and their supernaturally sharp edges that never require hunting. The steel itself is distinctive, dark and smoky, with a rippled pattern like flowing water visible within the metal. The Doom of Valyria, a cataclysm of unknown origin that destroyed the Valyrian freehold some 400 years before the events of the series, obliterated the knowledge needed to forge new Valyrian steel. While a handful of master smiths, most notably Tobho Mott and Cohoric smiths, can reforge existing Valyrian steel objects into new shapes, no one in the known world can create new Valyrian steel from scratch. The total number of Valyrian steel weapons and objects in existence is unknown, but the great houses of Westeros and wealthy merchants and rulers across Essos jealously guard whatever pieces they possess. In Westeros alone, approximately 200 Valyrian steel blades are believed to exist, though not all are accounted for. What follows is a history of each known named Valyrian steel item. Valyrian steel swords of Westeros. Ice House Stark. Ice is perhaps the most recognizable Valyrian steel sword in Westeros, serving as the ancestral greatsword of House Stark of Winterfell for centuries. Enormous in size, described as almost as long as Robb Stark, was tall ice is kept in a special scabbard made of treated leather with silver fastenings. Ice is used by Lord Eddard Stark to execute the Night's Watch deserter will in the opening pages of A Game of Thrones, and later, in a grim irony, it is used by Sir Ilyn Payne to execute Eddard Stark himself on the orders of Joffrey Baratheon. After Eddard's death, the sword is taken by the Lannisters to King's Landing. Upon Tywin Lannister's return to the capital, he commands the master smith Tobho Mott to melt down ice and reforge it into two new swords. The process is described vividly. The great rippled blade, dark as smoke, reduced to liquid steel before being poured into two separate molds. The resulting swords are Oathkeeper and Widow's Wail, both described as having a deep red and black ripple pattern, the color imparted by the rare pigments used in the reforging process. Oathkeeper Brienne of Tarth, formerly House Stark and Lannister. One of the two swords reforged from ice, Oathkeeper is the larger of the two blades. Tywin Lannister presents it to his son Jaime, intending it as a symbol of Jaime's renewed role as a Lannister. However, Jaime gives the sword to Brienne of Tarth, tasking her with fulfilling their shared oath to find and protect the daughters of Catelyn and Eddard Stark. Brienne names the sword Oathkeeper herself, honoring the charge given to her. She carries the sword throughout her search across the Riverlands and the Vale. Its rippled red and black Valyrian steel marks it as extraordinary wherever she travels. The sword represents a complex interplay of honor, debt, and the ghosts of House Stark. As of the end of A Dance with Dragons, Oathkeeper remains in Brienne's possession as she continues her quest, having encountered Lady Stoneheart and the Brotherhood without banners. Widow's Wail House Baratheon and House Lannister. The smaller of the two swords reforged from ice, Widow's Wail is given by Tywin Lannister as a wedding gift to his grandson King Joffrey Baratheon at the royal wedding. Joffrey names it himself and uses it to hack apart a large book gifted to him by Tyrion, a somewhat symbolic act given the blade's pedigree and his own volatile nature. Joffrey dies at the wedding feast, the Purple Wedding, without ever having used it in combat. Widow's Wail then passes to his younger brother King Tommen Baratheon, though Tommen being a gentle child. The sword has no great story attached to it under his reign as of the end of the published novels. Longclaw House Mormont and Jon Snow. Longclaw is a bastard sword hand-and-a-half sword of Valyrian steel that has been in the possession of House Mormont of Bear Island for 5 centuries. Its pommel is traditionally fashioned in the shape of a bear's head, fitting for the house words, "Here we stand." Jeor Mormont, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch and former Lord of Bear Island, carries Longclaw with him to the Wall. When his son Jorah Mormont is forced to flee into exile after being caught selling poachers into slavery, Jeor does not return the sword to Bear Island but keeps it in service on the Wall. After Jon Snow saves Jeor Mormont's life from a white attack at Castle Black, Mormont gifts Longclaw to Jon as a reward, having the pommel refashioned from a bear into a white direwolf to suit Jon's identity. This act of generosity marks a profound bond between commander and steward-turned-ranger. Jon carries Longclaw throughout the events north of the Wall, using it to kill the White Walker at the Fist of the First Men and in the Battle of Castle Black. The blade's Valyrian steel proves crucial, as it is one of the few substances capable of destroying White Walkers. As of the end of A Dance with Dragons, Longclaw's whereabouts following Jon Snow's assassination at Castle Black are unaddressed. Heartsbane House Tarly. Heartsbane is the ancestral Valyrian steel greatsword of House Tarly of Horn Hill, one of the great houses of the Reach. It has been in the Tarly family for 500 years. Randyll Tarly, considered one of the finest military commanders in Westeros, is its current bearer. Heartsbane plays a role in Samwell Tarly's departure from Horn Hill. When Sam leaves to join the Night's Watch, his father Randall makes clear his contempt for his eldest son's cowardice and unworthiness. Sam secretly takes Heartsbane with him when he flees Horn Hill with Gilly, believing it will be of use against the others. Its ultimate fate in the series remains unresolved as of the last published novel. Dark Sister House Targaryen lost. Dark Sister is one of two Valyrian steel swords belonging to House Targaryen, the other being Blackfire. Described as a slender blade suited to a woman's hand or a man who prefers speed over power, Dark Sister has a notably bloody history. It was wielded by Queen Visenya Targaryen during the conquest of Westeros, and later passed to the Dragon Knight Aemon Targaryen, and subsequently to his bastard nephew Daemon Targaryen, the Rogue Prince. Daemon carried Dark Sister throughout the Dance of the Dragons, the Targaryen Civil War, and took it with him on his final mission to the Stepstones, where he and his dragon Caraxes fought and killed Prince Aemon Targaryen and his dragon Hagar above the God's Eye Lake. Both Daemon and Aemon were killed in this confrontation, and their bodies were never recovered. As a result, Dark Sister's whereabouts after the Dance of the Dragons are unknown, though some accounts suggest it may have been retrieved by Lord Brynden Rivers Bloodraven, who later served as a ranger of the Night's Watch and is believed to have gone north of the Wall. Dark Sister is listed as missing following Brynden Rivers' disappearance beyond the Wall. Blackfire House Targaryen lost. Blackfire is the sword of Aegon the Conqueror himself, crafted in the shape of a traditional longsword rather than the cavalry blade more common among Valyrian swords. Dark and rippled, it was the symbol of Targaryen kingship for generations. When King Aegon IV, Aegon the Unworthy, presented Blackfire to his legitimized bastard son Daemon Waters on his deathbed, the act was interpreted by many as naming Daemon his true heir, a reading that Daemon embraced. Daemon Blackfire, as he became known after taking the sword as his surname, raised the first Blackfire rebellion against his half-brother King Daeron II. He was killed at the Battle of the Redgrass Field. Blackfire then passed to his sons and was carried by successive leaders of the Blackfire pretender line for decades. The last known Blackfire male, Meleys the Monstrous, was killed in the War of the Ninepenny Kings by Sir Barristan Selmy. What became of Blackfire the sword after this is not recorded, though it is presumed lost or hidden. Lady Forlorn House Corbray. Lady Forlorn is the ancestral Valyrian steel sword of House Corbray, a noble house of the Vale of Arryn. The blade has a long history within the Corbray lineage and is described as a slender, elegant sword. As of the events of the main series, Sir Lyn Corbray carries Lady Forlorn, and he is considered one of the finest swordsmen in the Vale. Lyn Corbray's skill with the blade and his ruthless reputation make him a figure to be feared, even if House Corbray itself is of middling status among the Vale's lords. Red Rain House Drum. Red Rain is the Valyrian steel longsword of House Drum of Old Wick, one of the great houses of the Iron Islands. The sword's origin story is a point of pride among the Ironborn. A Drum ancestor took it from a knight he killed with his bare hands after his own sword had broken, and the knight's blood allegedly turned the blade red, giving it its name. Whether this is legend or truth, the blade's reputation is formidable. As of the events in the main novels, it is held by Lord Dunstan Drum. Nightfall House Harlow. Nightfall is the Valyrian steel sword of House Harlow of Harlaw, the most powerful and populous of the Iron Islands. House Harlaw is unusual among the Ironborn for their love of learning, and their seat, the 10 Towers, houses a formidable library. Nightfall is carried by Lord Roderick Harlaw, known as the Reader, though the blade's history prior to his stewardship is not fully detailed in the published text. Orphanmaker House Roxton. Orphanmaker is the ancestral Valyrian steel sword of House Roxton, a noble house of the Reach. Orphanmaker's name speaks to its dark history of leaving children without fathers. As of the events of the main series, it is in the possession of House Roxton, though it does not feature prominently in the narrative. Vigilance House Hightwer lost. Vigilance is the Valyrian steel greatsword of House Hightwer of Oldtown, one of the oldest and wealthiest houses in the Reach. The Hightwers have held Oldtown since time immemorial and are closely associated with the Citadel and the Faith of the Seven. Vigilance's history is not detailed extensively in the main series or the companion volume The World of Ice and Fire, but it stands as one of the known Valyrian steel weapons of the Great Houses. The blade has disappeared, with its current whereabouts unknown. Truth House Rhaegar. Truth is mentioned in the histories as a Valyrian steel blade once owned by House Rhaegar. The World of Ice and Fire and Blood contain various references to swords that have passed through history, and Truth is among those whose full story remains obscure. Lamentation House Royce lost. Lamentation is the lost ancestral Valyrian steel sword of House Royce of Runestone, one of the most ancient and powerful houses of the Vale of Arryn. The Royces are among the oldest noble houses in Westeros, claiming descent from the First Men. Lamentation was lost during the storming of the Dragon Pit and has not been recovered since. Its fate remains unknown. Brightroar House Lannister lost. Brightroar is the lost ancestral Valyrian steel sword of House Lannister of Casterly Rock. The Lannisters are among the wealthiest houses in Westeros, yet despite their resources, Brightor has never been recovered. The sword was lost when a Lannister king took it with him on an ill-fated expedition to Old Valyria, and neither the king nor the blade returned. The loss of Brightor is a source of quiet shame for the Lannisters, who have sent expeditions in search of it to no avail. Valyrian steel beyond Westeros. Azor Ahai's Lightbringer, legendary. Lightbringer is not a conventional Valyrian steel sword, but the legendary blade of the mythical hero Azor Ahai, said to have been forged at the dawn of the Long Night to defeat the Great Other. According to legend, Azor Ahai tempered the blade by plunging it into the heart of his beloved wife Nissa, and her soul and courage gave the blade its power, a fire that does not burn. In the present of the series, Melisandre and the followers of Arlor believe Stannis Baratheon to be the reincarnation of Azor Ahai and his ceremonially produced Lightbringer to be the true sword reborn. However, the sword Stannis carries shows none of the supernatural heat or light associated with the legend, and most observers, including Maester Aemon, doubt its authenticity. Whether the original Lightbringer was Valyrian steel is not confirmed in the text. The dagger Catspaw blade disputed ownership. The Valyrian steel dagger used by the Catspaw assassin who attempts to murder the bedridden Bran Stark is one of the more mysterious objects in the series. The blade is plain, with a dragonbone hilt, and of high Valyrian quality. Its ownership is hotly disputed and central to political intrigue. Littlefinger Petter Baelish claims the blade was won from him by Tyrion Lannister in a bet, which Tyrion denies. The truth of the blade's ownership before the assassination attempt is unclear. Catelyn Stark takes the blade after the attack and shows it to end, triggering a chain of events that deepens the conflict between the Starks and the Lannisters. It later comes into Littlefinger's possession and is ultimately gifted to Bran Stark himself at the Dragonstone Summit in the television adaptation, though the specifics of its journey in the novels remain ongoing. Qohoric Valyrian steel. The city of Qohor in Essos is unique in retaining some knowledge of working Valyrian steel, though not creating it. The Qohoric smiths, through blood sacrifice to the Black Goat and secrets passed down from surviving Valyrian craftsmen, can reforge Valyrian steel objects. This knowledge is what allows Tabho Mat, a smith trained in Qohor, to reforge ice into Oathkeeper and Widow's Wail. The Unsullied are famously associated with Qohor through the legend of the 3,000 of Qohor, in which the entire slave soldier force of a Valyrian dragonlord was defeated by the disciplined Unsullied phalanx, proving that Valyrian military dominance was not invincible even before the Doom. The swords of the Golden Company and Free Companies. Various Valyrian steel swords are rumored to be in the possession of wealthy sellsword companies operating in Essos, including the Golden Company, founded by Sir Aegar Rivers Bittersteel, a legitimized bastard of Aegon the Unworthy and a commander in the Blackfyre rebellions. Whether Bittersteel's own sword or any other Valyrian blades remain with the company is not confirmed in published text. Other Valyrian steel objects. Maester chains and instruments. Valyrian steel is not limited to weapons. Maesters of the Citadel may incorporate Valyrian steel links into their chains, representing mastery of the higher mysteries, magic, and the arcane arts. Such links are exceptionally rare, as little raw Valyrian steel exists that is not already in use. The presence of a Valyrian steel link marks a Maester as someone who has ventured into the study of magic and the supernatural. Valyrian steel armor. References exist throughout the histories to Valyrian steel armor crafted during the height of the Freehold, though no complete suits are known to survive in the current era. The Targaryens and other Dragonlord families of Old Valyria are said to have had such items, but the Doom and the centuries since have reduced Valyrian steel to almost exclusively bladed weapons, objects small enough to be preserved, traded, and passed down through families. Notably, Euron Greyjoy claims in the books to possess a full suit of Valyrian steel armor, which if true would make it an extraordinarily rare survival from the ancient world. Valyrian steel axes and other weapon forms. While swords dominate the historical record of Valyrian steel weapons, the material was not limited to bladed swords alone. References in the wider lore indicate that Valyrian steel could be forged into many forms, including axes, spearheads, and daggers. Wealthy free cities and noble houses are said to have possessed such items during the height of Old Valyria. However, named surviving Valyrian steel axes are not well-documented. Ancestral swords became the dominant Westerosi status symbol, and most smaller or differently shaped items have been lost or gone unrecorded. The Ironborn culture of the Iron Islands, which favors axes heavily, has led to speculation that Valyrian steel axes may exist among Iron Islands treasures, but no famous named example equivalent to ice or longclaw has been confirmed by George R.R. Martin. Properties and significance. Magical properties. Valyrian steel is one of only 2 known substances capable of destroying White Walkers, the other being dragonglass obsidian. This property, demonstrated dramatically when Jon Snow uses Longclaw to kill a White Walker at Hardhome in the show, and at the Fist of the First Men in earlier iterations, elevates Valyrian steel from a mere symbol of status to a potentially decisive weapon in the conflict against the Long Night. The steel does not dull, does not rust, and maintains its edge indefinitely. It is lighter and stronger than the finest conventional steel. Whether its properties derive from the sorcery used in its original forging or from some inherent quality of the materials is unknown. The knowledge died with Valyria. Cultural and political significance. In Westeros, ownership of a Valyrian steel blade is a mark of ancient lineage and prestige. The great houses that possess such blades, the Starks with ice, the Mormonts with Longclaw, the Tarleys with Heartsbane, display them as proof of their history and status. The loss of a house's Valyrian steel blade is considered a profound diminishment. The reforging of ice, a sword symbolizing the honor, justice, and history of House Stark into Lannister blades, is among the most symbolically charged acts of the War of the Five Kings. Tywin's choice to commission the reforging is a deliberate act of domination, not merely defeating the Starks militarily, but erasing their most iconic heirloom. The question of reforging. Only a handful of smiths alive in the present of the series know how to reforge Valyrian steel. Tob Homat of King's Landing is the most prominent, having been trained in Qohor. The process requires extreme heat and, according to some accounts, blood sacrifice. New Valyrian steel cannot be created. Only existing steel can be reshaped. This makes every known Valyrian steel object irreplaceable, and the total supply finite and slowly diminishing as blades are lost to war, shipwreck, or time. Summary of known Valyrian steel items. The following is a consolidated list of the principal known Valyrian steel items referenced in A Song of Ice and Fire and its companion works. Ice, Ancestral Stark Greatsword, reforged into Oathkeeper and Widow's Wail by Tob Homat on Tywin's orders after Eddard's execution. Oathkeeper, reforged from ice, gifted by Jaime to Brienne of Tarth. She carries it in service of her oath to find the Stark girls. Widow's Wail, reforged from ice, gifted to Joffrey Baratheon, inherited by Tommen after Joffrey's death. Longclaw, Mormont Ancestral Bastard Sword, gifted to Jon Snow, pommel refashioned as a direwolf, used to destroy a White Walker. Heartsbane, Tarly Ancestral Greatsword, taken by Samwell Tarly when he flees Horn Hill. Blackfire, Aegon the Conqueror's Sword, given to Demon Waters by Aegon IV, used as symbol of the Blackfire rebellions, lost. Dark Sister, Slender Targaryen Sword, wielded by Visenya and Daemon Targaryen, lost after the Dance of the Dragons, last associated with Brynden River's Bloodraven. Lady Forlorn, Corbray Ancestral Sword, carried by Sir Lyn Corbray in the Vale. Red Rain, Drum Sword of the Iron Islands, legendarily taken barehanded from a knight. Nightfall, Harlow Sword of the Iron Islands, held by Roderick the Reader Harlow. Orphan Maker, Roxton Ancestral Sword of the Reach. Vigilance, Hightwer Greatsword of Oldtown, lost. Truth, Valyrian steel blade once owned by House Rhaegar. Lamentation, lost Ancestral Royce Sword, disappeared during the storming of the Dragon Pit. Bright Troor, lost Ancestral Lannister Sword, taken on an expedition to Old Valyria and never returned. The Catspaw Dagger, plain Valyrian steel dagger used in attempt on Bran's life. Ownership disputed. Valyrian steel armor, extremely rare. Euron Greyjoy claims to possess a full suit. Valyrian steel axes and other forms. References exist to Valyrian steel axes and spearheads, though no famous named examples survive. Sources: A Song of Ice and Fire, George R.R. Martin, The World of Ice and Fire, Fire and Blood, The Hedge Knight and Associated Novellas.